right, take it away, Zach.
Hey everyone, welcome to NC Normal's December 3rd Thursday chat, our last one of this year, whatever adjective you want to use to describe 2020. I'm sure there are plenty of them out there. But thanks for tuning in with us here tonight. Don't have much to give you on the update front other than all the updates. We're gonna tell you about everything that we've been doing here in 2020 as we wrap up, and pretty soon we'll show you what our strategic plan is for 2021. Watch out. But before we get into all that, we have our government affairs consultant here, Ms. Jan Ramquist. And in a moment, she will tell us what's been going on with the governor's task force. Jan, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, take it away.
Well, it was pretty good. They established an equity task force, and NC Normal went to work bringing to attention of the task force that cannabis was an entry to inequitable justice, and we made great strides. The Among the recommendations of the task force were several about cannabis, decriminalizing, raising the possession amount to 1.5 ounces and making it a civic rather than a criminal charge, and also enacting a task force to look at decriminalization and use of cannabis overall. That's great that we got to that point, but the challenge is that most of the proposals must be enacted by the General Assembly. So we need to get to the General Assembly and convince them to enact those recommendations. So, as always, we go back to the General Assembly. We need to talk to our legislators, and maybe we can get some good things done.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a task force like this before, and I know we've seen, a bit of inaction from the General Assembly on, cannabis reform in the past, but maybe this change is, the change, maybe these recommendations will carry some weight.
Yeah, and what is really coming to bear is that we need bipartisan support. We need Republicans joining into, with Democrats to make this happen. And, one of the key points is this is an individual liberty issue that most Republicans agree with: individual liberty, freedom, ownership of guns, so forth. So we need to make sure that goes over into the liberty of cannabis, especially since cannabis is less addictive than many legal drugs. For instance, tobacco is 30-something% addictive.
Yeah.
Well, cannabis is 9%. So we need to educate all our legislators in a bipartisan way. And that means every cannabis supporter needs to communicate with their legislators and educate them about all the information which NC Normal has on our website, and personal stories about why cannabis is important to you.
Exactly. Yep. That's where we're taking it for 2021, y'all. The pieces are starting to fall into place. We need a broader coalition across the state to reach all these different representatives. But yeah, I hear you, Jen. It's kind of weird that we ended up on the wrong side of the Liberty line there for cannabis. To me, it's a no-brainer, but here we are. What is it? 70 plus years after we originally lost that freedom.
Yeah, 85 years. It's interesting to me that cannabis was prohibited shortly after alcohol prohibition was overturned.
Hmm. There's some
It's
history there.
it's like, the law enforcement needed something to do. So there we are. And
And that brings
interesting
us back to this task force, huh?
and interesting is that when the discussion about prohibiting cannabis was discussed in the Congress, is that the American Medical Society testified against prohibiting cannabis because it was an important medical treatment.
We just kept on trucking.
Yeah.
Well,
So there you
we're
go.
we're trying to bring it back, and well, hopefully we make some good progress this year. I have a good feeling because we got some good pieces in place this past year. I think it might be a good time to flip on over to the other part of our presentation here tonight, and that's showing y'all what we've been working on.
That's great. Yes. Good plans.
Dylan, you want to switch us over to the slideshow?
Yep, I've got it up for us.
Awesome, thank you. All right, y'all. So here, just to reiterate our mission in case y'all weren't familiar, we have our three keywords there, and that's educate, empower, and activate. Um, we're always trying to provide the best information, whether it's the cannabis history or up-to-date research to folks, and also empower y'all with anything we can in terms of resources to get you comfortable with constituent advocacy and reaching out to your representatives, and then putting that together to activate a broad base and have a lot of interactions with our legislators, build relationships, and eventually get us over this hump. Next slide, please, Dylan. Great. So, in case y'all weren't familiar with our board of directors, I'm Zach Lentz, the board chair, talking to you right now. Our secretary, Dylan Reinhardt, is here on the call as well, helping with the display. We've also got our executive director, Katrina Ramquist-Wesson, and our deputy director, Lauren Scheel, still on board. We have a small change to our board recently. Ann Corin moved over to vice chair from treasurer, and we welcomed our new treasurer, Mr. Brian Rowe.
Welcome, Brian.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy to have him. He's already making waves. So just a quick recap on this next slide here. We came together at the beginning of this year and put together our first strategic plan for the next 5 years. Again, emphasizing that we're going to educate, empower, and activate. Next slide, please, Dylan. And of course, we plan on tracking our progress by setting goals and making sure that we keep up with them throughout the year to assess where we're headed and what challenges we've seen. We just wrapped up our recap of the year and our strategic plan for the next year. But tonight we're going to focus a little on our successes so far. So next slide, please, Dylan. So we kind of have a few categories here for where we're able to measure and track our success, whether it's people raising funds, our research resources, our engagement with our legislature, or just the basic organizational stuff that we need to keep things moving here. Next slide, Dylan. So starting with organizational, few big things here that might seem like small things, but they've been big for us. We had a full board for the whole year for the first time in as long as most of us could remember. We'd had some turnover there, but we've got a great core group here. We love working together. We get along well, and we just are we're here because we're passionate. We're all volunteers, and we just really want to see this keep moving. Um, as I mentioned, we put together our first strategic plan, overarching 2020 to 2025. Um, and we've been keeping track of our progress and our goals. I also want to highlight that we started anti-racist education starting at the executive level, where we kind of analyze our organization and our own habits to root out some of those bad things that have made their way in. Next slide, please, Dylan. All right, this was the fun one. It started off fun, but then 2020 kicked in. I don't know, some of y'all might have tuned in for our candidate cannabis conversation. It was a live event back when we still had those. We hosted, I don't remember how many we had, maybe we'll call it roughly 10 General Assembly candidates from across the state. They took questions, spoke on cannabis. They were all quite supportive of reform. And we were able to help inform some of the voters before primaries. So we hope to hold more events like that in the future, of course, once things get back to normal, whatever that'll look like. Either way, normal will be involved with that. We, of course, have initiated our third Thursday chats like we're doing tonight. We had our My NC Cannabis Story campaign. That's where we open the floor up for y'all. We've heard that these personal stories can be impactful, so we turned the microphone over to you guys and let you speak up about your stories and push them back out there. I think we gave out some T-shirts too then, so that was fun. But thank you to everybody that participated in My NC Cannabis Story, and of course, we are always looking for more folks that are willing to share their story. Finally, we've been working really hard on our advocacy training sessions. Maybe you guys have seen notifications for those, or maybe attended. We've had some folks work through those. They've mostly been focused on the first steps recently, but we'll be looking more at the next steps in the near future. So those of you that have attended before, stay tuned. We'll have something a little newer for you in the future. Next slide, please, Dylan. And kind of going hand in hand with what I was saying there about the advocacy training is, we've been putting together a lot of materials. Here's a screenshot from our website where we have our advocacy training videos put together by Jan, who was on earlier. We also have several fact sheets that cover all kinds of different aspects of cannabis reform. If you feel like there's a gap there, if you do talk to your legislator and maybe you're not able to answer a question that they have, please do reach out to us, and 'cause chances are somebody else is going to have that question too, and we want to help you get those resources put together. Next, Dylan. Of course, fundraising has been a big part of the organization. Our big thing this year is we set up a way for folks to donate and established our membership levels. We have plenty of ideas for how to really help y'all get the value out of that this next year, so stay tuned. Can't wait to see where we go with these funds. It's been a little limiting over time, but I'm optimistic about 2021, just like about the rest of these measurements. All right, next one, please, Dylan. And of course, growing membership. We've hit on this a little bit here, but we've been slowly building our base. Those of you that are tuned in and listening, thank you so much for being a part of this. We need you, and we need you to bring a friend. So, grab a buddy and get them involved too. Next slide, please, Dylan. And this is how you can do it. We have several different ways that can happen. There's the pretty a little more surface level involvement, what we call a supporter, staying up to speed on what we're doing, what opportunities are out there, how you can be involved, and how you can reach out to your legislators, what messaging we have going on at the time. There might be times when there are bills up and we really need to make a big push. So, just staying tuned and keeping an eye on what we have going on is a thing all in its own. So thank you for the support to our supporters. And that does include some sustainers on the fundraising side, like I mentioned before. We also have committee volunteers, to put on little events like this and get our nuggets out, put together our cannabis sessions. It takes some behind the scenes work. It takes some planning, and we do have a good handful of dedicated volunteers in addition to the board that help really keep things moving. And we're always looking for more folks that can help with that. We are a volunteer organization. Sometimes folks think that this is a job, and while I know I and others do treat it like one, sometimes we're volunteers here. We're giving our time and doing the job that our representatives aren't doing for us. So anybody looking to get involved, we have plenty of opportunities, as you'll see on the next slide, Dylan. Currently, we have a few committees going. We consolidated our communications committee, our events committee. Kind of made sense during COVID since we're not having those in-person events. We also have our legislative and education committee. The ones the folks that handle our education materials, our research, help craft that advocacy training. In addition to our committees, there's some other opportunities to get involved. We have some smaller kind of working groups that meet less regularly, but still knock out some important work for us. Our committees tend to meet every 2 weeks, but these working groups are kind of as needed when things need to get tackled. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there's our advocacy team. So there's plenty of different ways to get involved with us, if this is a cause that you're passionate about and you want to move the needle. But with that, I want to kind of leave you here on a little bit of a cliffhanger because we have our strategic plan pretty much finalized here. We'll be releasing that pretty soon, and I hope it'll inspire you to get a little more involved with us in the coming year, especially on that front of interacting with your legislators, because that's going to be really crucial to moving the needle in North Carolina. I'm sure y'all have heard this before from us, but we can't get it on the ballot. It's not something we can do in North Carolina. So we really need to focus on these relationships with our representatives in the coming year to really get a sense of what they need to feel comfortable making this change for us. With that, Dylan, do we have any questions lined up?
None that I'm seeing. Appreciate everyone tuning in.
That's okay.
But yeah, we'll.
If y'all do come up with any questions about how you can get involved with us or really anything else, we'd love to hear from you. Check in with us on social media. Check on our website. Otherwise, I hope you have a safe and relaxing rest of your 2020, and we will see you in